I can't sleep, Ethan said, his voice low, almost apologetic. Mind if I crash here tonight? It's too hot in the guest room. I should have said no. I should have made up some excuse. But instead I nodded. Sure, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Just for tonight. He climbed into the bed, and I immediately regretted my decision. Before we start, thank you for coming to my channel. Your participation is my happiness. Let me know where you are and what time it is now. Okay, now let's get into the story. Started as a simple favor. A misunderstanding perhaps. My cousin Ethan had come to stay with us for the summer. He was family after all. What could possibly go wrong? I never imagined that his presence would unravel everything I thought I knew about trust, safety, and the people closest to me. I was 19 and Ethan was 22. He had always been the charming one, the one everyone loved. When he asked to stay with us, my parents didn't hesitate. Family comes first, they said. I didn't think much of it at the time. He was just my cousin, right? Someone I'd known my whole life. But looking back, I should have seen the signs. The way he looked at me sometimes, the way his jokes always seemed to linger a little too long. I brushed it off. He was family. What could possibly go wrong? The first few days were fine. He kept to himself mostly. But then one night everything changed. It was late. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the air conditioner struggling against the summer heat. My room was small, but it was the only one available when Ethan knocked on my door. I hesitated. Something about the way he stood there, his silhouette framed by the dim hallway light, made my stomach twist. But I told myself I was overthinking it. He was family. What could possibly go wrong? I can't sleep, Ethan said, his voice low, almost apologetic. Mind if I crash here tonight? It's too hot in the guest room. I should have said no. I should have made up some excuse. But instead I nodded. Sure, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Just for tonight. He climbed into the bed, and I immediately regretted my decision. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. The distance between us was nothing but an illusion. His body was too close, his warmth seeping into mine. I tried to ignore it, to focus on the sound of the air conditioner, on the faint glow of the streetlights outside. But then he shifted, and his hand brushed against my side. I froze. My heart raced, my mind screaming at me to move, to say something. But I couldn't. I was paralyzed by confusion, by disbelief. His hand lingered, sliding ever so slowly until it was resting on my waist. Ethan, I whispered, my voice trembling. What are you doing? He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled me closer, his breath hot against my ear. Just relax, he murmured, his voice thick with something I couldn't identify. I'm not going to hurt you. But I didn't believe him. I wanted to push him off, to scream, but I couldn't. The weight of the situation, the shock of it all, kept me frozen. His hands moved with purpose now, not asking for permission but taking what he wanted. And it was more than I could handle. Stop, I cried, but my words were lost in the darkness, swallowed by the silence of the night. He didn't stop. And that's when I realized this wasn't about a simple request. This wasn't about family. This was something much worse, something I didn't know how to get away from. I wanted to scream, but my voice betrayed me. The moments that followed felt like an eternity. I was trapped, the bed pressing down on me like a heavy weight. Ethan's body was against mine, his hands now everywhere, pushing boundaries I never thought we'd cross. Every touch, every movement sent shockwaves of terror through my body. I wanted to scream, I wanted to fight, but every time I tried, something inside me, fear, confusion, humiliation, kept me from moving. Please, Ethan, stop, I begged, my voice barely a whisper. But he didn't listen. His eyes, dark and intent, never left mine. He was so close now, his breath hot against my neck, his fingers tracing the edge of my skin in ways that made me shiver, not from pleasure but from pure, gut-wrenching fear. You don't understand, he muttered, his voice laced with something dark. You think I'm doing this because I want to hurt you, but I'm not. The words barely made sense, but the way he said them made my stomach churn. They felt like lies, sweet poison slipping past his lips. And yet, I had no strength to stop him. I'm family, he whispered, as if that made everything better, as if it somehow justified what he was doing. You're mine just like I'm yours. The world around me seemed to fade away, reduced to the feel of his body pressing against mine, the sound of his breath, the slick warmth of his skin. I was paralyzed, my mind screaming for escape, but my body was caught in the grip of something far stronger than my will. His lips brushed against my ear, soft at first, but then firmer, more insistent as his hands explored. Every part of me screamed at him to stop, but my body betrayed me, betraying my thoughts with its stillness, its silence. "I don't want this," I whispered, the words breaking in my throat, but I knew it didn't matter. In that moment, it didn't matter whether I wanted it or not. I was no longer in control. The fear, the shame, the helplessness, it all mixed together into one overwhelming, suffocating force. Ethan was no longer the cousin I'd known. He was someone else, someone I didn't recognize. And in that moment, I was no longer the person I once was either. The next morning, the sun rose as if nothing had happened. The world outside my window was bright and alive, but inside I felt hollow. My body ached, my mind raced, and the weight of what had happened pressed down on me like a stone. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. All I could do was lie there, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of the nightmare that had unfolded in the dark. Ethan was gone. He had left the room quietly, as if nothing had happened. But the memory of his hands, his breath, his words, they lingered, clinging to me like a second skin. I wanted to scrub it all away, to erase the feeling of his touch, but I couldn't. It was etched into me, a permanent scar. I didn't know what to do. Should I tell someone? My parents? The police? But the thought of speaking the words out loud made my stomach churn. How could I explain something I didn't even understand myself? And what if they didn't believe me? Ethan was charming, likable. He was family. Who would take my word over his? The shame was overwhelming. I felt dirty, broken, like I had somehow brought this on myself. Maybe I had. Maybe I should have said no. Maybe I should have fought harder. The thoughts swirled in my head, a toxic mix of guilt and self-loathing that I couldn't escape. I stayed in my room all day, avoiding everyone. My parents knocked on the door a few times, asking if I was okay, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. How could I tell them that their nephew, the boy they had welcomed into our home, had done something so unspeakable? How could I face them knowing that I had let it happen? By the time night fell, I was exhausted. My body was heavy, my mind numb. I thought maybe, just maybe, I could sleep and forget, even for a little while. But as soon as I closed my eyes, the memories came rushing back. I could feel his hands on me, his breath against my skin. I could hear his voice, low and mocking, telling me I was his. I sat up, gasping for air. My heart was pounding, my body drenched in sweat. I couldn't do this. I couldn't keep living like this. But what choice did I have? The door creaked open and I froze. My heart leapt into my throat as Ethan stepped inside. He looked at me with those same dark eyes, the ones that had haunted me all day. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us was heavy, suffocating. "You're still awake," he said finally, his voice soft, almost gentle. But there was something beneath it, something dangerous that made my skin crawl. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat was tight, my chest heavy. I wanted to scream, to tell him to get out, but the words wouldn't come. He stepped closer, and I instinctively pulled the blanket tighter around me. "You don't have to be afraid of me," he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I'm not going to hurt you." But he already had. The words echoed in my head, but I couldn't say them out loud. I couldn't do anything but sit there frozen, as he reached out and brushed a strand of hair from my face. "You'll see," he whispered, his voice dripping with false sweetness. "This is how it's supposed to be. You and me. We're family. We belong together." I wanted to vomit. His words were like poison, seeping into my mind, twisting my thoughts. I wanted to push him away, to tell him he was wrong, but I couldn't. I was too afraid. Too broken. He leaned in closer, his breath hot against my ear. "You'll get used to it," he said, his voice low and menacing. "You'll see that this is what you've always wanted." I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. "No," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I don't want this. Please just leave me alone." But he didn't. Instead, he smiled, a cold, cruel smile that sent a shiver down my spine. "It's too late for that," he said. "You're mine now. And you always will be." With that, he stood up and left the room, closing the door behind him. I sat there trembling, the weight of his words crushing me. He was right. It was too late. I was trapped and there was no way out. Thank you for listening to the story so far. Your encouragement means a lot to me. Please comment and share your thoughts here. I love you and I am so grateful to have you on this journey with me to explore the story further. Days turned into weeks, and the weight of Ethan's presence in the house became unbearable. He acted as if nothing had happened, as if the darkness between us didn't exist. He laughed with my parents, helped around the house, and even joked with me in front of them. But when no one was looking, his eyes would lock onto mine, and the mask would slip. The cold, calculating look in his gaze was a constant reminder of what he had done, and what he could do again. I tried to avoid him. I spent hours locked in my room, pretending to be busy with schoolwork or too tired to come downstairs. But he always found a way to corner me, to remind me that I wasn't safe, not even in my own home. One evening after dinner, my parents went out for a walk, leaving me alone with Ethan. I tried to retreat to my room, but he caught me in the hallway, his hand gripping my arm tightly. "Where are you going?" he asked, his voice deceptively light. "We barely get to spend any time together anymore." I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. "Let go of me," I said, my voice shaking. "Please, Ethan. Just leave me alone." He smirked, his eyes narrowing. "You know I can't do that," he said, pulling me closer. "You're mine, remember? And I don't like it when you try to run away from me." I felt the panic rising in my chest, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. "I'll tell them," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I'll tell my parents what you did." For a moment, his expression faltered, and I thought I had gotten through to him. But then he laughed, a cold, humorless sound that sent a chill down my spine. "Go ahead," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "Tell them. But who do you think they'll believe? Me, the perfect son they never had? Or you, the girl who's been acting strange and distant for weeks?" His words hit me like a punch to the gut. He was right. My parents adored him. They trusted him. And I had been withdrawing from them, too afraid to tell them the truth. Why would they believe me now? Ethan leaned in closer, his breath hot against my ear. "You're stuck with me," he whispered. "So you might as well stop fighting it." I wanted to scream, to push him away, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed by fear, by the knowledge that no one would believe me. I was alone, trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, tears streaming down my face. I felt broken, shattered into a million pieces that I didn't know how to put back together. But somewhere deep inside me, a spark of defiance flickered to life. I couldn't let him win. I couldn't let him destroy me. The next morning I made a decision. I couldn't keep living like this. I had to do something, even if it meant risking everything. I waited until Ethan was out of the house. Then I grabbed my phone and dialed a number I had been too afraid to call before. "Hello," a voice answered on the other end. "Hi," I said, my voice trembling. "I need help." The voice on the other end of the phone was calm and steady, a lifeline in the chaos that had become my life. It was a counselor from a local support hotline, someone trained to listen, to help people like me. I didn't know if calling them would change anything, but it was the first step I had taken to reclaim control over my life. "Take your time," the counselor said gently. "You're safe here. Can you tell me what's going on?" I hesitated, my throat tight. The words felt like shards of glass, cutting me as I tried to speak. But I forced them out, piece by piece, recounting the nightmare I had been living. I told her about Ethan, about the way he had manipulated me, violated me, and made me feel like I had no way out. I told her about the fear, the shame, the helplessness that had consumed me. When I finished, there was a brief silence on the other end. Then the counselor spoke, her voice soft but firm. "You're incredibly brave for reaching out," she said. "What you've been through is not your fault. You didn't ask for this and you don't deserve it. But you're not alone anymore. We're going to help you." Her words were like a balm to my shattered soul. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way out of this. The counselor walked me through my options. She explained that I could report Ethan to the authorities, and that there were people who would believe me and support me. She also suggested that I consider telling someone I trusted, a parent, a teacher, or a close friend. "You don't have to face this alone," she said. There are people who care about you and want to help. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. What if no one believes me? What if he hurts me again? That's a valid fear, she said. But you're stronger than you think. And you have rights. No one has the right to hurt you no matter who they are. If you're ready, we can take this one step at a time. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling as I clutched the phone. Okay, I said. I'll try. After the call, I felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. I had taken the first step, but I knew the road ahead would be difficult. I needed to tell someone. Someone who could help me face Ethan and the consequences of his actions. But who? That evening, my mom knocked on my door. Hey, sweetie, she said, peeking her head in. You've been so quiet lately. Is everything okay? I looked at her, my heart pounding. This was my chance. But the words stuck in my throat. How could I tell her that the cousin she adored had betrayed me in the worst possible way? How could I shatter her trust in him, in me? Mom, I began, my voice shaking. I need to tell you something. But it's really hard. Her expression softened, and she stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. Whatever it is, you can tell me, she said, sitting on the edge of my bed. I'm here for you. Tears welled up in my eyes as I struggled to find the words. It's Ethan, I said finally. He hurt me. My mom's face went pale. What do you mean? She asked, her voice trembling. I took a deep breath and told her everything. The words poured out of me like a flood, each one lifting a little more of the weight that had been crushing me. When I finished, my mom was silent for a long moment. Then she pulled me into a tight hug, her own tears wetting my shoulder. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry I didn't see it. I'm so sorry you had to go through this alone. Her words broke something inside me, and I sobbed, clinging to her like a lifeline. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. My mom didn't hesitate. As soon as I finished telling her what had happened, she sprang into action. Her face, usually warm and gentle, was now set in a determined expression I had never seen before. She held my hands tightly, her eyes locking onto mine. We're going to fix this, she said firmly. No one gets to hurt my child and walk away. Not even family. Her words gave me strength, but I was still terrified. What if Ethan denied everything? What if he turned my parents against me? The fear of not being believed still gnawed at me. But my mom's unwavering support gave me the courage to keep going. That night, my parents sat me down at the kitchen table. My dad's face was grim. His jaw clenched as he listened to my story. When I finished, he stood up and paced the room, his hands balled into fists. I can't believe this, he muttered. I trusted him. I let him into our home. We all did, my mom said, her voice steady but laced with anger. But now we know the truth. And we're going to make sure he never hurts anyone again. The next morning, my parents confronted Ethan. I stayed in my room, too afraid to face him, but I could hear the raised voices from downstairs. Ethan denied everything at first, his tone calm and convincing. But when my mom threatened to call the police, his demeanor changed. You're really going to believe her over me? He said, his voice dripping with mockery. She's just a kid. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Don't you dare, my mom snapped, her voice shaking with rage. You don't get to gaslight us. You don't get to hurt my daughter and then act like the victim. Get out of my house. Now. There was a long silence and then the sound of footsteps. A few minutes later, the front door slammed shut. My mom came upstairs and wrapped me in a tight hug. He's gone, she said. And he's never coming back. But it wasn't over. Not yet. My parents insisted on reporting Ethan to the authorities. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Reliving the trauma, answering endless questions, facing the possibility that he might not be held accountable. But my parents were by my side every step of the way, their support unwavering. The investigation was grueling, but in the end, Ethan was charged. The evidence, text messages, my testimony, and the counselor's report, was enough to hold him accountable. He was sentenced to prison, and for the first time in months I felt like I could breathe. The road to healing wasn't easy. There were days when the memories overwhelmed me, when I felt like I would never be whole again. But with the help of therapy, my family, and the support of friends who stood by me, I began to rebuild my life. I learned that what happened to me wasn't my fault. I learned that I was stronger than I ever thought possible. And I learned that even in the darkest moments, there is always hope. It's been a year since that night, and while the scars are still there, they no longer define me. I've started college, made new friends, and rediscovered the parts of myself that Ethan tried to destroy. I'm not the same person I was before, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm stronger now, more resilient, and I know that no matter what happens, I have the power to fight back. My parents and I are closer than ever. They've become my biggest advocates, always reminding me that I'm not alone. And while the journey hasn't been easy, it's been worth it. Because I'm free. And I'm never going to let anyone take that away from me again. And that's it for today's story. I'd love to hear what you think. Leave a comment below and share your feelings. Did you relate to any of the characters? Or if you were in their shoes, what decisions would you make? I'd love to hear from all of you. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. And if you didn't, hit one. Subscribe so you don't miss out on more great content. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.